What's up, my friends? Welcome to the Kristof Lewis podcast, Create Your Career. This is Contemplation with Kristof, number 78, episode number 199. What's so special about this episode, as you can already read from the title, it is the 199th total episode, but it is the last episode of 2019, so it's only right that I make the last episode the most downloaded, most viewed episode, the top 10 of 2019. So what I did is I took all of the downloads on all audio, and I took all the views on YouTube, and I combined them. I did some hardcore math, and I came up with the top 10 list, and that is this episode. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you my opinions, like some behind the scenes information, maybe really how I feel about that guest, my connection to that guest, and how I felt about that conversation. And then I'm going to play one or two clips from each guest, and that will be today's episode. I had so much fun reliving these episodes, and some episodes all the way back to almost the very beginning made the top 10 for 2019, which is really exciting and just makes me really happy to relive those moments because this has been such a fun journey. So, as I said, welcome to the Kristof Lewis podcast. I'm very happy that you're here. I'm very humbled that you donate some of your time to listen to this podcast. I'm so pumped to get into this, so I'm not going to stall too much longer. But remember, you can find this episode on kristoflewis.com/podcast or any of your most favorite podcast listening apps. And you can find yours truly on Instagram at Kristof Lewis. And now it's time for the book challenge. And I'm reading one book a week for a year. And last week I read Turning the Flywheel by Jim Collins. This is a follow-up book. It's really short. It's a follow-up book from Good to Great, which is one of my all-time favorite books. I recommend both. This week I'm reading Multifamily Millions by David Lindahl. Yesterday's conversation was conversation number 121 with Miss Stephanie Worth. She is the airborne unicorn. She is active duty Army as an officer, and she also is a certified personal trainer on the side. So it was really cool to talk to somebody that she's a contracted full-time day job, but she's still doing something on the side. And that was one of the many things that was so unique about that conversation. So I highly recommend that you check it out. And as I already said, today is about the 2019 top 10 download it, listen to across all media platforms. We have Spotify, iTunes, things that go on LinkedIn, Twitter, everywhere, YouTube's. This is the total of everything. So very exciting. So let's get into it. All right, so coming in at number 10 is the man, the myth, the giant, Mr. Bas Rutten. This is my last recording of 2018. It's making it into the top 10 of 2019. I was so humbled. It was like, to me, it was one of the biggest interviews of 2018 because I started the podcast in 2018. So when I saw the email come through from Mr. Bas Rutten, I about stumbled over and I couldn't believe it. He's an absolute legend in MMA. I mean, he's an OG. If you don't know about him, a quick Google search will show you that. This was a huge interview. So to land it within my first year of podcasting for me was really personal, and I really enjoyed it, and I had such a great time.
Once you set your sights on something, just go for it all the way. And if you go for it all the way, listen to all the famous people. It doesn't matter what in sports and music, whatever it is, they all say never give up. Just keep on going. And that's the one thing I just did. I always listen to them. I go, well, if everybody's saying it, it's got to be true. And I just kept pushing and bada bing, bada boom, suddenly here we are. When people say, I don't have the time for that. I said, I don't have either. But I just wake up at 5 o'clock. What about that? You just wake an hour and a half earlier. That's it. You got your time. You just got yourself some time. And don't start doing it right away. Like if you normally get up at 7 or something and tomorrow you want to get up at 5, I would never do that. Go to next week, go 6:30. And then a week later, go to 6 o'clock. Take it easy on yourself. You don't have to go fast. The 4 weeks are by, boom, and then you're at 5 o'clock. So take your time with it. Create time if you don't have it by simply go early to bed. Be healthy and then get up earlier. So all the stuff that you want to do before you go to work, maybe the preparation for a podcast, you do at that moment, and you go to work, you come back, and now it's already prepared. You see, everybody can make time for that. It's just doing it.
Coming in at number 9 is the wonderful, the sweet, the badass Cristina Zenato. Cristina was one of the first podcasts. Cristina was conversation number 15. She is a shark diver, a cage diver, a cave diver. She does all these incredibly dangerous awesome, badass things in the ocean, and I really enjoyed my conversation with her. It was one of the most unique conversations that I've had on the podcast, and she's given some of the most real and down-to-earth answers on the podcast. And even though I was in the infancy of becoming a good podcast host, she still was able to deliver. And it was one of my most favorite podcasts and one of my most interesting podcasts and one of the most humble and great individuals, human beings that I've had on the podcast. I really enjoyed this one.
I do believe that we are, as humans, we're losing connection with nature. We have lost that connection with nature. We are in these artificial worlds, it's artificial homes and artificial transportation. There's people that maybe never even feel the sunlight on their skin for days on end without realizing it. And I do believe that if people were a little bit more in tune with nature, in general, it doesn't have to be the ocean. The ocean for me is the nurturing place. I do believe we've been 9 months, the first 9 months of our lives, we've been in water. Yeah. So going back to water is actually that feeling that you feel. It's like being home, being nurtured into that environment where you are the safest place on the planet, right? Inside your mother's womb.
Coming in at number 8 was Mr. Dan Mulroy. Dan Mulroy is a Navy SEAL, and I really think we delivered a unique podcast, even though he's been on a few already. He's a great guy. He's seen some serious adversity in his life, and he's just a wonderful family man, and I was so appreciative of having him on here and talking about all the topics that we did cover, including his transition and plenty more. This was a good one.
The transition was tough for me. 6 weeks before I was supposed to separate from the military, actually my wife was pregnant and she was due in 2 weeks, I was diagnosed with tongue cancer. So you can imagine 2 weeks before my wife is due with our daughter, and then 6 weeks before I'm supposed to go to the military, I'm faced with cancer. It is a happy ending. I'm still here. Every day you have to challenge yourself to continue and move forward and take everything in stride. It's not the end, and that's what, two things. There's a moment in time, and that's today, and what's happening today, but there's going to be a tomorrow, and you have to plan for the future. You can't let whatever's happening today consume you. So whether it's making the best decision for yourself and your family and transitioning from something that you love, that I love, and moving on from that and starting something new that's scary, or facing, an illness or sickness in the family or yourself.
Coming in at number 7 was the man himself, Mr. Ryan Williams, all the way from Industry Threadworks. Ryan was a really fun conversation. We covered a breadth of information, and I really, really enjoyed this one for a multitude of reasons, but it was fun. It was down to earth. He didn't tiptoe around a bunch of shit. He just told me what I needed to hear, and I love that. I always preach about how you need to have people in your life that tell you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear, and that was the epitome of this conversation with Mr. Ryan Williams.
I really don't give a shit about motivating people. You cannot motivate someone. You cannot push them or pull them or poke them enough to get them through the training, because as soon as you stop, if that's what's getting them through, as soon as you stop, they're going to quit. People that complain about uncontrollable things like that, they're the same people that go nowhere in life, because if you allow unmovable things, you're not going to change social media, right? So if you allow unmovable things to dictate how you go through life, you're just gonna get tossed about on the seas. You know what I mean? It's like a rudderless ship. The waves suck today, or the wind blew me this way.
Sure. Well,
how about you fucking stick your oars in the water and start paddling, or put your rudder in there and start making some moves, or direct your life a little bit. Because worrying about things that you cannot change is the biggest waste of time, and that means complaining about these things are the biggest waste of time.
Coming in at number 6 is the man, Josh Koscheck. I had a great time speaking with Josh. I never knew he was such a huge military supporter. I told him I aged myself. I was watching him fight MMA when I was in high school, and to have him on the podcast was incredibly surreal for me. We dove into such in-depth conversation. It blew me away, and it was really, really fun. Definitely worth a listen.
You may not be the smartest guy. You may not be the guy that can stay up 20, 48 hours in a row. At the end of the day, I will find a way to get it done because I'm willing to work. If you're willing to work at something, you can learn anything. I mean, look at me. I fought in the cage. I come from a wrestling background, blue collar, poor. I would say I somewhat call myself a dirt road scholar. I didn't get there because of how smart I am. I didn't get there because I got lucky. I got there because I worked my ass off. I got there because I'm willing to put the time in to learn things. I have to get used to losing and then say, okay, what did we do wrong? We've lost our fair share. When you lose in fighting, I would always go back to the drawing board. Why did I lose?
Yeah.
Okay, let's try to fix it. Let's work on the deficiencies that I have to make them better so that that doesn't happen again. And I take those same things that I learned throughout training and throughout wrestling and throughout fighting into the business practices.
Mm-hmm. Breaking into the top 5 is the man himself, Mr. Michael Sarraille. Now, Mike is a Navy SEAL, as many of you do know. Mike and I worked together in our former career when I was an electronics technician. I was an RTO working with him so gratefully. I was so humbled to work with him and all these other gentlemen that I was able to work with as well. And it was one of the most instrumental times of growth in my career and as a person. And Mike is a huge part of that because we've had a lot of conversations to help me grow as an individual during that military time and even after the military until the present. So I'm forever grateful for who he is in that sense. And he's doing great things in the world as well with plenty of other people with the companies and organizations that he's built out into the world post-military. Highly recommend you check out EF Overwatch and vet it.
I know you're going through hard times. Reach out to me. We'll talk to you. We'll talk about it.
Yeah,
I've got veterans reaching out to me quite a bit through LinkedIn or the EF Overwatch website. And their starting line is like, I have a job right now. It sucks. Nobody understands me. I've got PTSD, and I'll thank them for reaching out and build a rapport, and then I'll get right to the tough love and say, hey, listen. You need to own your workplace. If you're different than the civilians, put your ego in check, build a relationship with them, and make it work. Find a way to make it work. Make it your plaything. If you're in the sales department of a company and you're not having fun, become the top salesman. And then raise the bar for the rest of the employees. But there is fault to be placed on both sides, but at the end of the day, we can't deal with what mainstream society and how they view us. We can, with that talent mindset, say, no, I'm not falling into that. Isn't a path, and I'm going to be successful. Hey, other vets, I might need a hand up, a little help, some opportunity, and that's what we're here for.
Coming in number 4 is another 2018 guest, a really fun guy, a really smart guy, a real professional, Mr. Ryan Tseko. I had a wonderful conversation with him. He was one of the most early conversations in the 20s again, and he delivered soundbite after soundbite after soundbite. It was just a wealth of information, a wealth of knowledge. This guy is, I learned a lot from him. I learned about, I have a lot of fun and I'm happy-go-lucky a lot, but he was a real professional. And the way he described his relationship with Grant Cardone, Ryan is the pilot for Grant Cardone, but he's also a partner and an investor as well in real estate with Cardone Capital. And the way he described his relationship with Mr. Cardone and with the company was very unique. So I encourage you to go back out and check that conversation as well.
Most people aren't willing to take risks. Most people aren't willing to give. I was 30 years old and I quit the airlines. I was making, 6 figures. I had a girlfriend. I thought I was going to get married. Everybody around me was telling me I was doing wonderful, pat on the back, hip, hip, hooray. I was like, God, there's more out there. It's like, man, I know I could do so much more. I'm reading all the books. I'm going to all these masterminds. I'm doing all the right things. What do I need to do? What do I need to hook on to? Where do I need to move? And so I was brainstorming. My mind was always open. I think the way that people get out of certain things is, hey, what's practical, right? What's the real life shit that's helping me win? What's the real life shit that's helping you win? And for me, I could tell you point blank, it's getting around people who are winning, and you have to have a winning mindset in order to get around people who are winning. So get a mindset that's winning, get around people that are winning, and stop being a little bit, like Grant would say, stop being a little bitch and just saying, hey, good, you know what? I'll sweep the floors. What's next? It's one thing to show up, but it's actually another thing to show up with a good damn attitude, look good, feel good, being prepared like you are, and having the ability to absorb stuff and learn. Don't waste people's time.
Coming into the top 3 is Mr. Chad Wright, a former Navy SEAL. He's an ultra runner now and a podcaster. He's doing incredible things out there as well, helping out others, which I am so huge on. I actually changed around one of my questions so that he could answer me because his answers were so unique on some of these questions. It was a really fun one, a really down-to-earth one. Again, highly recommend this one.
I feel so blessed to have the things that I have from a mentality standpoint, the lessons that I've learned and the things that I've been given in my life. I was given all those things. I was taught all these things. So I can't keep them unless I share them. You become the master by teaching others what you have learned. I think the biggest thing that helped me with the transition was I diversified my identity. Is that we wrap our identity around that one single thing, because that's what we've done our entire adult life, and we've been totally invested in that job. If you can diversify your identity, and what I mean by that is find a place for yourself in other things. Like for me, it was ultra running. I found a new mission in ultra running. I found a new group of people that I loved and something that I really liked to do that challenged me. Yeah. And so that really helped me getting out. And I think that has helped me really propel myself forward now, because I'm not holding on to that Navy SEAL title that I was so used to having.
Coming in at number 2 is Mr. Eddie Penney. Now, Eddie was one of my favorite guests out of all 120 episodes that I've recorded so far, because who this guy is. If you know Eddie, if you listen to him talk, if you've seen some of the things he's written, he is one of the most humble individuals that you will ever come upon. He truly means to help. He truly wants to help, and he's just a down-to-earth guy that really enjoys going out there and crushing it and doing good in the world. This is a must listen.
We talk about mindset in the military. I think a lot of people really don't understand what that means. Like, oh yeah, think about it and go do it. No, like it means you go do it. Like there is no obstacle, there is no nothing. There's going to be some things that look like you can't do this because of this. There's a way around it, or you just blow yourself through that obstacle. That's what people really need to realize. If you want it, you have got to get it. That is it. Okay, I'll do this. I mean, I wrote down things like, okay, here's my makeshift business plan or whatever. A lot of it came from failure. And from those failures, though, came success. So it wasn't like, I failed multiple times. I failed multiple times. So I learned a lot. It was good. And right now it's great. So, we're definitely bigger. We're really reaching out to multiple different countries, which I love, and keeping people safe. And that's like the biggest thing for me is that, and getting friends and other people jobs, or like contracted jobs at least.
That is awesome.
It's going well.
And coming in at number 1 through all of YouTube, through all of audio on iTunes, Spotify, everywhere the podcast is the one and only. He is unapologetically American. You already know him, Tim Kennedy. Tim was one of the most unique conversations that I had in the entire podcast. He was running around in his backyard with a cell phone, and we were recording at the same time. We were chasing his kids around on their Power Wheels, and this guy has seen a lot of things, and he's done so many unique things in his career, in his numerous careers. I always ask about careers, and I even joked about it in this conversation because we talked about his careers. He does so many things. Obviously, he's a Green Beret. He's a TV host. He does so many things, and he has such a unique but bold view on many, many important things in this world. So this was a really fun one. This was a truly inspirational one, and I'm happy to have Mr. Tim Kennedy at number 1 for the podcast for 2019. So I hope you enjoy these clips.
So the reason I inspire, the reason I try to encourage, I want people to realize their full potential. The only way that can be realized is by the individual reaching their full potential. The reason that we became the strongest, most powerful, most successful country on the planet is because of the individual. Journeys have the problem. While I know what my purpose is, if you look at the journey's full of pain and suffering and sacrifice. And I think where a lot of people fail or fall off the wagon or lose their resolve to continue on their purpose or their vision, it's when things get hard.
Yeah.
And what you have to realize and you have to accept is that that's good. that the pain and the suffering, the sacrifice, the selflessness, like sometimes those are just necessary elements of the process.
All right, my friends, that rounds out the top 10 for the Kristof Lewis podcast, Create Your Career, for all of 2019. We had guests for 2018, guests from 2019 that made the 2019 reel. And today is the last day of 2019. I cannot believe the podcast is going on its third calendar year. It's really exciting, almost 2 years total of podcasting. So I cannot wait to see what is in store for the new guests. And I hope to continue to deliver value to you through the contemplations, these episodes where it's just me, and then all these guests that I spoke about today. I think it's a really unique way to delivering value to someone. And why it's unique is because I get to pick the brains of other people. And then through the podcast, through interacting with you all on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, I come up with these topics that we discuss, that I talk through the contemplations. And a lot of the contemplations can be extensions of the conversations as well. So just be cognizant that there are those two segments within the podcast, and they are both individually unique, and sometimes they can be similar to each other. So as I always say, I'm full of gratitude for you being a listener to the podcast. The best way to help the podcast is to share it. Go to iTunes, rate 5 stars, and just check out all the other contemplations and conversation episodes we have. And I truly mean it when I say it. Thank you so much for listening. But you can listen to all of these badass top 10 guests and all the other contemplations. But if you don't apply it, it doesn't mean anything. So I hope you had a wonderful 2019, and I hope you absolutely crush 2020, and I'll see you there.
What?